I don't have any treats. It's okay.
Welcome everyone to the council meeting tonight. I would ask Councilwoman Ponce to do the invocation.
Father, thank you for this opportunity to gather here together this evening. Thank you that we have the privilege of being in this place to talk about business of the city and to talk about how to make our city a better place for the citizens that live here. Please help us give due diligence to everything that we discussed tonight, and may we all remember and be grateful for the things that you've given us. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Diane, and happy birthday, Diane.
Thank you.
39.
Sweet little 16.
I know.
All right, yes, Cameron.
Cheerleading.
All right, and welcome to all tonight. Take the time to come out and discuss the pressing issues of the community, so we appreciate your attendance tonight. Lynn, I don't believe we have any oral and written communications reports. There is no, I didn't do the minutes.
I was going to say, no, but we have minutes.
Let's go back to the minutes. Approval of minutes from November 19th.
I move to approve.
I'll second.
All right, was there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Did anyone's agenda have the approval or the consideration of redevelopment commission members on their agenda today? That was an error.
Originally, I thought I saw it earlier, but then when I checked in, it was
Some
gone.
of them were changed, and I just wanted to make sure we understood that, and if you go back to minutes, you'll see that we did that at the last meeting, so that's been taken off of new business, so. Okay, we'll start with new business. First item is a request from the Animal Welfare League to support their campaign request, and we'll get to the Animal Welfare League. I suppose a lot of you are familiar with the Animal Welfare League, and we'll certainly take your comments tonight. I just wanted to kind of set the stage. Obviously, the city has a contractual agreement with the Animal Welfare League to provide animal control services. The city does not and cannot make donations to a cause, but we can, again, through contract, provide support for those contractual services. And that, Diane, I know we looked at this a while back this year. That's allowed by Indiana Code 36825, which specifically refers to medical care, health, and community services. In fact, there's even a little language in there about disease and public health and animals as well. So tonight, the AWL is here to support, again, a request for support of their new facility. And evidently there was an error when the information was sent to the city. It was returned by mail is all we can figure out, because we never got the request. And unfortunately, it missed the deadline of our budget hearing. So we're here to ask to consider, number one, I think the important thing is to talk about the services that Animal Welfare League provides to the city and how important those are. I've asked Tug Curtis, our animal control officer, to come up here in a moment and discuss the importance of the services that they provide here in a minute. I'm also going to ask Lynn to talk about resources that are available both in the 2018 budget and the 2019 budget to potentially split that request and or move it to the year 2019 or even the year 2020. I'm not here to suggest what you do. This is a decision you have to make. If you decide that you want to enact the 2018 contract, amend it, we would take it to the Board of Works this Friday and amend the 2018 contract to allow us to potentially increase our contract for our cost for services, and we would certainly add that potential amount this year. And then we could also do the 2019 contract for services. We haven't approved that yet. That'll be approved at the Board of Works. It was scheduled to be approved at the Board of Works on this Friday. We could change that, and so we wouldn't have to amend it. It would just be part of the change to include a support of their request. We could do nothing in 2018. We could, I would suggest if you want to pass it on to 2019 that we go ahead and put it in the contract for 2019 at the Board of Works this Friday. If you choose not to do that, we could amend it at a later time in 2019. We could also wait until the 2020 budget's considered in the middle of the year and then do it all in 2020. There is a mechanism to potentially do 25,000 this year, is that correct? And then potentially the remainder next year. I think you all saw the request was for $50,000. But again, there is it could happen if that's what you decide you want to do. We could, with your support, and only with your support, then we would go to the Board of Works Friday and amend that contract. So, again, it's all up to you. 2018 a portion, 2019 a portion, 2019, 2020, or none at all. And that's really what we're here to discuss tonight.
One procedural comment that the council had that I didn't know how to answer, Mayor, was did we already cut that from line 1 funding back when we vote, last meeting when we cut those funds, and would we have to redo that ordinance in order to?
We haven't brought the line 1 cuts. I've solicited line 1 cuts. I prepared line 1 cuts. Those have to be approved by you all, and they haven't been approved. So that 32,000
Okay, so
that
we could
that you
still,
all cut from council contracts is in the line 1 cut right now. So again, that would be part of your discussion, and that would help. We would maybe not cut $25,000 next year if you so decide.
so resolution 2018-1105, which was reductions from the 2018 budget. did
Those
not
are line
include
2
those.
cuts.
Those are the line 2 cuts, and was this money that we're looking at part of those? That was our question.
No, there are
Okay.
funds that are still available in professional services to cover this, but
Okay.
you would have to give your approval to
Okay.
do that. I mean, I wouldn't do it without your approval. Does that make sense? Are there any questions? In line 2 cuts, you have voted on. Line 1 cuts, probably when we respond to the budget.
Yeah, we weren't sure
Order.
whether this was money coming from those that we already cut last meeting. Okay.
And being at the end of the year with the December, just 1 month to go, we've got a pretty good idea where we stand, and there are funds in that 360. So,
And is that the maximum amount, Lynn, that's in that? Is 25,000 the maximum, or do we have more?
32.
For this year,
Mhm.
today, the unencumbered balance was just a little over $52,000.
so again, not knowing what we would encumber the rest of the month, the suggestion from the clerk treasurer was to not encumber the full amount, and I would agree with that, in that we don't run short if there are other outstanding bills that we're not
Yeah, because
aware of.
that doesn't include what would be for this next Board of Works. It hasn't been posted yet. There's a few things in there, but not that much.
Okay. Thank you.
Questions as far as the procedure and what we're doing here tonight? So again, I'm just looking for your consensus to take this to the Board of Works for 18, 19, whatever you all decide. And I think I'll ask Tug Curtis to come up, the Animal Control Officer, to talk. I asked him to just talk to you a little bit about the importance of the services. I don't think we probably hear from him enough as far as the detail. He gave me an example today of a methamphetamine bust that involved a pretty high number of animals that had to be transported to the facility. That was kind of an eye-opener to me, so Doug?
Good evening. Basically, I'm just going to tell you, this is a very bare minimum. This is not the total amount. It's,
Doug, be sure and use the mic.
oh,
Pull
you
it
want me to
down.
get it closer?
Or
Is
you
that
can
better?
hold it with your hand if you want.
Okay, can I just hold it and walk around? Don't make eye contact with me because we're going to be here all night. Anyways, this is a bare minimum, or this is generic number. It was quick. About what, 3:30, something like that, I started working on it. So I got a rundown of the past 11 months of animals that I've taken to the shelter. A lot of these calls, I'll show up and there'll be a mom with 3 or 4 puppies or a cat with 3 or 4 kittens. So with these calls, I could only count them as one animal. It wasn't all of them. So basically in 11 months, I've brought 315 animals to the shelter. And one of those was, there was a meth lab showed up, and there was 21 cats and kittens and 3 dogs. So I guess if you do the math, that's how many extras I brought. Filled the cages, filled the shelter, and unfortunately made them, that was a big expense that you guys incurred. So basically it showed 11 animals in January, February was 14, 6 animals in March, 40 in April, 60 in May, June was 38, July was 20, August was 43, September was 27, October was 33, and November was 23. I didn't do this month's figure. I know there's been 3 or 4 that I've taken to shelter. So that's kind of a generic number, if that makes sense. So there could have been 100 extra with the kittens and the puppies or whatever that I took. I've been told that every time that I take an animal to the shelter, it averages about $50 an animal, that the cost that they have to incur. So, and if you do the math, it's almost like 28 animals I take a month to the shelter, and that's just off this generic number. So, but as far as that goes, I made contact, well, attempted contact with some other shelters on the outside, other counties. If we don't take animals to the shelter here, we have to take them to another shelter. When we impound them, several different criminal cases like the meth lab, we had to take custody of those animals, take them someplace where they were food, water, and shelter, and if they were injured or sick, they had to be administered medication, different things like that. So I know the police department won't let me take them there, or else I would. But so basically what it amounts to is I need a place to take these animals because it's our responsibility then at that point in time, depending on court outcome. So I know the gentleman did bond out and tried to bond his 3 dogs and out right away and left his wife and kid in there in jail. So they told me he needed to clean the house before he got those back, but he eventually come back and retrieved at least his dogs and some of the cats. So I guess basically is if you want me to go to a different county, I can take the animals to a different county and we can pay them, but 315 trips, that's probably going to be a lot of gas money. So it's nice with them being as close as they are and willing to help. My personal experience with the staff and the board members has been great. I've never had an issue, and if there was a problem at any point in time, they were quick to resolve it right away. And they bend over backwards for us for the city of Warsaw, and I know the county also. And if the county animal control officer was here, he'd be saying the same thing about them. So, does anybody have any questions as far as Well,
If you were to take an animal outside of the county to another facility, what would the charge be?
they wouldn't tell me. Basically, they said, well, we don't know if we really want to take out-of-county animals.
Really?
Yes. They said,
So if they
They run
denied us, then what?
don't know. We have to do something, whether we speak to a vet office and see if we can speak to a vet and have them.
Are these facilities owned by the county or the city in question, or are these facilities like we are talking?
I never asked. I just wanted to call. Like I said, I haven't done a lot of investigating on it. I just was making.
Maybe somebody else knows the answer.
Yes, most likely.
Oh.
Oh, there we go. Katie knows.
No, the initial question in regards to the county shelters, when we've had to send owner surrenders to those counties, it's typically a $100 surrender fee that is required to be paid. So I can only assume that would be the same amount that the city of Warsaw would be responsible for if they were to go out of county. I do know in working with these other shelters that they have not allowed us to bring any strays into their county. They've had to keep it within their own county. So only in the situation with owner surrender where they do a phone call and do an assessment over the phone with the owner, are they willing to take animals. So it's very unlikely that we'll be able to get that kind of assistance from the county, only other counties, simply because of the kind of demand that they have in their own precinct. And then the other question was if they're even willing to. Was that the other question?
I was just wondering who owned them, so to speak.
Oh, okay.
Owned
As
by
far
the
as I'm
county
aware,
or-
Elkhart County as well as Whitley County are government-owned. And then we also have Wabash County. That's probably the closest one. And I believe they are an independent shelter as well, but I could be incorrect.
I'll have you come up in just a second and
Okay.
make your pitch, but thank you for answering that
Mhm.
question.
Thank you.
Tug, with regards to public health and safety, if there's a rabid animal, does that rabid animal end up out at the shelter?
A lot of times, yes. They have to euthanize it and then remove the head, and then we send the head down to the
So
state.
they
to
provide
taste-
those
yes.
services?
Yes,
How about wild animals,
correct.
raccoons?
I've taken birds,
Yeah.
ferrets, but as far as raccoons or opossums, no, they don't go there. But snakes, you've housed snakes for us. Seems like a lot of meth labs like snakes for some reason. So,
All right.
and so basically all your domesticated animals, we take them all to the shelter except for the large animals like horses, cows, calves, different things like that. So,
Anything else you want to add from your daily perspective as far as the
well,
services?
with the amount of calls that I have, I can't tell you exactly off the top of my head, but I know it's close to 1,500 calls for service that I take. And like I said, there's 315 here. So a lot of my time, I'm all over the place. So averaging, basically 30 animals a month, if not more, to the shelter is time consuming. So the farther I have to drive, the more calls I have racked up, the more cost that the city does incur. And it's a great location. So, and as far as that goes, they're willing to work with us more so than when I reached out to the other place that wanted to speak to me and said they really didn't want any of our issues.
Any further questions?
Tug, I want to publicly thank you for your service. A question I have related to calls and animals that you take. What percentage is outside the city limits? Can you ballpark that for me? If you take 30 animals a month, or just out of every 10 that you take, is there a small percentage?
There is a
the
small
county?
percentage. Right now, there's Jerry Clace, county animal control officer, and me, and then there's one more that's going through training to assist with the animal control. When Jerry is for his calls for him, so some of those are the county animals, but it's going to the same place that the county takes their animals to. So the county takes them to the animal shelter also.
Right.
If I have to guess that, I'd say probably 80%, maybe 85% is from the city of Warsaw, and the rest would be from the county. So,
Thank you.
uh-huh.
Thanks, Todd.
Yep. Anything else? Okay. Thank you, guys.
All right. So I think it's probably time to hear from the representatives from the AWL to make the request, and we'll kick it back to you guys for questions, and then we'll have our discussion.
Afford to get that animal spayed or neutered. And what happens is then we start seeing major overpopulation within their community, and then those animals become in way a ward of the state because they're unable to take care of them. By doing a low-cost spay and neuter, we're going to be able to reduce those amount of overpopulation of owner-owned citizen-owned animals. The second one is we're going to start a pet retention program. We have a lot of our citizens that are just not educated enough on how to be proper pet owners. And what the pet retention program will be is they'll be able to reach out to us. And so if you have someone that is wanting to relinquish their animal or their animals because of different needs that are not getting met, we'll be able to meet those needs through grant programs. So we'll have a fewer number being owner surrendered to the shelter. And then finally, we're going to create a TNR program, which is a trap, neuter, release program for all of our feral male cats in the area. Right now, we are seeing a gross overpopulation of cats in our area, and that is starting to bring a lot of illness to all of our cats, both feral and domestic. And the only way that we're going to get on top of that is if we start controlling that population. There is a misconception that all cats want to be in homes. They do not. A lot of these cats act as wild animals, but we need to stop their population because we're starting to see an amazing amount of illness wiping them out. We're seeing the illness come into our shelter, and we need to protect our animals and protect their lives. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have in regards to the organization or the building.
Just as a reminder, you did approve, it was $22,000 for AWL this year. That was the request for their contractual services to this point.
Yes, and we're exceedingly grateful for that support on a yearly basis. Thank you.
Right.
Okay.
Any more questions?
Katie, how
Yeah.
close are you to beginning construction and overhaul of the other facility?
Well, Dan Woods is on our board of directors. He'd be able to go into the detailed logistics. However, we have broken ground. I know that projection is that they're hoping to lay the foundation within the next couple weeks, pending the weather. We're hoping to have walls and a roof up by March, I believe. Again, this is all dependent on the weather, but right now we are projecting that we will be in our new facility the summer of 2019.
What is do you have an estimate of how many feral cats are in the city, or?
I wish we could create that kind of estimate. I can only base it on the increase of numbers that come in, and we have seen those numbers go up exponentially. A really good example is that being my first year with the organization, there's highs and lows when it comes to the animals that are coming in during the summer, and early fall is the high breeding season for our cats. And so I was hoping by October we'd start seeing some relief to that. Unfortunately, the cats have not gotten the memo, and so we continue to see a gross amount of kittens and cats that are coming into our shelter, and it's been nonstop. We've been in a situation where so right now we have over 50 cats and kittens that are living in people's homes that we are sponsoring to get ready to be available to adoption because we've run out of room in the shelter.
Can you provide numbers of how many you take in that you would say were feral cats, or some way of measuring a success rate? How many are coming in? How many you have? How many?
That is something that I
Because then,
can't.
like next year, you could come back and say, well, okay, it went up or it went down. We attribute our success or failure to this or that, or
Yeah, no.
those numbers would be very helpful.
Okay, that is something that I can come up with. Unfortunately, I'm not able to pull it up right now, but it's something that I'd be happy to provide the city sometime this week, give you those numbers. Okay, thank you.
Dan?
Good evening, I'm Dan Woods. I am on the board of the AWL for 1 year. I was asked by John Hall to come on, build a building, get it taken care of, paid for, and then I'm off the board. I do not have a dog, I do not have a cat. I really am not an animal lover, I'm just here, I'm the guy that sits in the meetings and I say, where's the numbers? This doesn't make sense, where's the numbers? So some of you have already asked, where are the numbers? Let me give you a little bit of an idea here. This year, it looks like we will have about 1,700 animals go through the Animal Welfare League building. Dogs, cats, about 1,700, Kosciuszko County. Our budget is about $380,000 for the year. So if you put some numbers to that, I'm a Warsaw graduate and I can handle this little bit of a job here. It looks like about $223 is what our actual cost is. That's not looking at the new building, that's just to make payroll, to take care of the animals. So we're at about $223. Tug says you brought about 317 animals to us. If you multiply that, that looks like about a $70,000 bill we should be sending the Warsaw City Council, because that at $223 an animal, and we've taken 317 of your animals, that's the actual cost. We do not do that. We work with foundations, and we literally are just begging people for contributions. It's pretty sad, but John Sadler calls us and says somebody passed away. Part of their, they said donations could be made to the AWL, and we get excited. I mean, we got some money. That's awful to say, but that's the way it works when you look at numbers. So those are what we're looking at in actual numbers. Now, what's happened with the building is in 2014, Animal Welfare League decided they were going to start raising money for a building. They have been working on it now for 4 years. They have raised enough money to pay $500,000 for 5 acres and a building, a pole barn, sitting out on 30. That is paid for 100%. We have continued to raise money, and we have somewhere around $1 million to $1.3 million already that's committed, or people have given us some verbal commitments on. Our building we're looking at is $2.2 million. Robinson Construction is doing the work, along with local heating and air conditioning guys and plumbers. So we have started the building. They will be working on foundations. Hopefully foundations will be in by the end of December. Walls will be delivered in January. We are shooting for July or August to have the facility up and running. We did request, I think you're right, I think numbers are going to improve with the new building, so we will be able to tell you exactly how many Tug brings us and almost what address they came from. That will make it easier for you guys going forward to be able to say, you know what, they have handled 300, 400, 500 animals, and it's all been Warsaw, and here's the addresses. Same with the county. We'll be able to tell the county if it came from Syracuse, Silver Lake, Claypool, but we will start tracking where all these animals came from, so we know for all of you. Like I said, we're at about $2.2 million for the new building. I did not realize how expensive buildings were to build for animals. Dan Robinson will tell you he was shocked. He and I went to Fort Wayne to the Welfare League over there, to their building. Dan and I were adamant that we were both really smart guys and we were going to save a whole bunch of money. We were going to show people how to really save money and build a building. And we got halfway through that building and Dan looked at me and he said, Woodsy, we're going to spend a lot more money than either one of us thought of. And I go, I know, I didn't realize what it was like. You can't put epoxy paint on the floor because the dog's toenails will cut the epoxy paint and then you get disease in there. So you have to have a special kind of sealer for the floors. You can't have any drywall in there because you use about 30,000 gallons of water a month to wash everything down. So you got to have cement blocks. And all of a sudden it just started adding up and adding up. You have to have special floor drains in. You have to have special floors so that everything is draining. So we discovered that Robinson Construction did a great job. They gave us about a 13,000 square foot building, which will be just double the size of where we are now. So we did send a request. It came back. Joe was good enough to let us hand deliver one down again to ask for the 50,000. And then called me and said, would you show up to talk? And we appreciate the chance to be here to plead our case for the additional money so that we can continue on with the building. It's going to be built. Just going to be exciting. Questions?
How much did the county commit to?
100,000 this year and 100,000 next year. Along with, they do give about 80, I think around 80,000 in operating.
Thank
But
you.
as far as a one-time, yes.
Thanks.
So Dan, the money you're asking for from the city of Warsaw, would that be earmarked strictly to go to the building project?
Strictly building. Strictly building, yeah. It's not anything to do with the operations. We are strictly building on this. We have secured one loan. Quite honestly, Robinson Construction has said they will carry for 2 years a certain amount of money if we need it. And we're working with First Source Bank on an amount to carry us if we need it. But I can't think of anything worse than trying to raise money for operations and also continue to keep raising money for the building. It's been a tough 4 years for the board to do that because people get confused and you're just trying to raise twice as much money. So the goal is to finish the building and have it paid for.
You mentioned 100,000 from the county this year and next, and again, that's specifically for this project.
Specifically.
And then when I look at the city and township request, is the 50,000 a part of that 400? Are we a part of any of the matching grant?
We will be some of the matching grant, yeah.
Matching grant? The
Well, we have one individual that is matching up to a certain amount.
150.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have verbal commitments from people for around 150, and the year's about over, so all this is starting to come in. We've projected getting about 100 to 150 for the building we're in. And so to kind of acquire that, Town of Winona Lake came through for us and gave us some, they're helping with the sewer system. We will be hooked up. I know you guys don't want to hear that word. We'll be hooked up to the sewer through Winona Lake, but so they've given us the equipment as their part.
In-kind contributions.
In kind, yes.
I see verbal and individual donors, it's 650,000, that's a goal.
The 615?
Yeah, 650,000. It says verbal commitment, individual donors. Is that-
150,000, yes.
I see 650. Is it, do you see that? It says existing savings, 655,000.
That's what we have on hand right now, 600.
You already have the
We have
650.
650,000 in our
Okay,
fund already.
okay, but your verbal commitments and individual donors, right now you can tell me that's just not a goal, that's, we have that.
Pretty much got that,
It's
yeah.
and our 50,000, you're telling me might generate more to this project through matching grant donors that have said they'll match it? Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Dave.
We'll, again, kind of kick it back to you all. I know,
anyone else have
just as an example, I know we did contribute to a match for capital expense for cabs on some of their vehicles, so it's certainly in purview of that state statute that I cited that we can do that. So I think it just, unfortunately, we weren't able to maybe discern this at a better time when we were looking at the whole budget. But I felt that the services that AWL provides is worthy of at least getting your thoughts on this, and then we do have some options. So I'm going to turn it over to council to discuss that. If you have any questions of Lynn or myself with regards to the process, to the options that you have, please ask away, and certainly I think there's a pretty eager group out here to answer any other questions you might have about AWL. Again, thank you all for coming tonight, I certainly appreciate it. So, Diane? Council?
According to this statute, we're allowed to give this money to a capital fund
Yes.
project?
Well, we would know, we would be contracting with them to
Right.
provide the services, and then they're telling us that the contract would be in order to expand the building.
But the
or
money
build a
would
new
go
building.
towards a capital improvement project. Your answer is yes.
Okay.
But it has to be, it's not a donation, it has to be through a contractual, and again, this would be an amendment to the existing contract. It would just be another line of funding that would support that contract for services. But it's specifically requested that it be for the improvements that they're gonna make.
So in essence, Mike, we could increase our contract for this year, and then we could consider increasing it for next year as well, from what the board already approved. Or you can take it in steps. You could increase it right now with the excess money that we have in our nonprofit budget that hasn't been spent for this year. We could increase it right now, and then it could come back before you again next year if you're not at this point wanting to make the 2-year commitment. Or, as Joe mentioned, you could push it off down the road. I'm not sure with relooking at our nonprofits and how we're going to handle those and what the criteria are going to be in order to fund those. I'm not sure that you want to push it off 2 years and push it off onto another council. I think, it behooves us here, sitting here today, to make a decision about the excess that is available from this year, for sure. And if you want to make a commitment for the following year, you can do that, or it can come back before us again next year in this same way. And then we would amend the contract that we already approved for 2019.
Well, I know we've struggled a little bit with how much to give, what criteria do we use to give. And I've spoken with several people up here, I've spoken with several people out there. I feel like personally that this is a service that is being provided to the city with help from everyone. And if we didn't have that, it would cost the city a whole lot more money to deal with these problems. Personally, I'd like to help them. I like the figure that Lynn's thrown out, the $25,000. I'd like to see it done this year and match it again next year as early as possible to help them get their building up. And I wouldn't have any problem doing that. It's just me.
I think probably one thing that sits really well with me is over the years, when AWL has come to us, there has been an awful lot of effort put in on the part of management, the board, volunteers, whatever, in an effort to raise money on their own. And that's something that's always near and dear to my heart if an organization is really making that effort on their own. And I do see that effort. And I would tend to agree with Mike, at least for this year.
So are we talking about, if we do this in 2 different years, we're talking about taking 25 from 2018
Correct,
Yes.
and 25 from 2019?
correct.
In addition to what we already are committed to.
Oh, yeah, that goes without being said.
Which
And
was
so
30,
your task-
32,000? Was it 32?
Yes.
Okay.
And so your task force that's meeting to make
$22,000
criteria.
is what,
Yeah.
22?
What
22.
we're meant to
Right.
for next
Thank
year.
you.
that's what's on the 2019
Okay.
contract right now.
Your task force that's meeting to set the new criteria would be for 2020. Okay, so not for next year's request, because we've already approved those. So we would,
increasing it.
so increasing, if you want to increase right now, you'd be amending our current budget and you'd be amending next year's budget.
Be amending the contract.
The contract budget, I mean, yeah.
There's
the
funds
contract.
available in that particular fund to support that. But I would not take the Board of Works without the approval of this body. And that would be for that would amend the 2018. The 2019 contract for the 22,000 goes to the Board of Works Friday, and we could change that contract to meet the 25,000 for 2019. In other words, we wouldn't have to amend it because it hadn't been approved yet. so we could change the contract. So again, amend the 18 contract for 25,000 and add to the 2019 contract for another 25,000 is one way to do it.
Stipulating in both cases it has to be used for the building fund.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the request, and that would be,
And that would be part of the contract itself.
Yeah.
Mike, do you have any comments on the amendment to the contract? There would be very specific language.
Yeah, we just set it out as a separate paragraph. Amended 2018 AWL contract, the following provisions are added.
I'm usually reluctant, for years I've had the privilege of making decisions like this. I'm reluctant to do this kind of thing unless there's like matching grant or it's something that's very special. The thing that has knocked me back is this is a $2.2 million investment in our county, which provides lots of services. And I know there's lots of moving pieces here. Tug speaking is paid for or supported through city tax dollars. But looking at all of the line items, and Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, the $50,000 request from us for the $2.2 million project would be about 2% of the structure. So the city of Warsaw and the burden, I don't know if I even want to say that, the services that are provided by this organization, our input, support for this would be 2% of the entire project, which tells me that's something that maybe this board should consider looking that direction and asking the Board of Works to make those amendments. I'm trying to follow you with all of this, but again, I've been reluctant, and but I know that there's a definite. The numbers are absolutely mind-boggling. Okay, my 2 dogs and my 2 cats that I have, or my wife has. It's all good, but it's just amazing the numbers and then the services that you're trying to provide, and that sort of helped me put it in perspective numbers-wise. 2% of the entire project, that 50,000.
And plus, it can be leveraged.
That's what Dan is saying, yeah, that they maybe could end up using that very small percentage to generate more donations, receiving grants, et cetera. Be my guess. Again, I'm just sitting up here trying to work through it. Appreciate, Dan, your help.
Does that matching offer only extend to this year or the whole campaign?
He had put up X amount of dollars that he will match. He has increased that twice, and I believe I just got an email last week that said he's going to increase it one more time. So there is one individual who probably has put close to $300,000 in his own matching. So, yeah, the one gentleman has stepped up.
Big
So,
time.
yeah,
So that's a private individual.
private individual. And I will also state that private individual has only been in the area probably.
Don't give out too many details. He doesn't want to be known.
Somebody in the county, but that person's only lived here about 10, 12 years. So, I mean, it's not a local boy or a local person.
Or girl.
Who's saying
What did you say it was per animal to?
223.
223?
223.
23?
That's about as basic, just taking a look at, here's our budget, here's about what we have in animals, dividing it, and you're about $223.
Well, I know the other part about that, maybe Carly, you can, that our local vets donate a lot of their time and supplies and.
I think in goods and services to the city and the county, this last year, we donated almost $30,000 for my process. So I feel like the city can certainly help out.
No pressure?
And I think that they actually, you think that's a big budget, I think that is a really reasonable for what they have. And you don't know that. I mean,
Yeah.
having just built the $2 million building, and what you have to do there that's even different than what I have to do, because I take in, 90% of my animals are healthy, and 90% of the ones that come to the shelter are not healthy. And there's a whole different layout and handling and to prevent spread of disease and air, HVAC systems and that sort of stuff, to prevent that spread. And, in a new building, they're gonna do so much better, so much better. And get in and out of there, get out of there faster, because they won't have to be nursed, back to health.
The animals will
Sick
do
in the
much
shelter.
better, but
Yes.
if you ever have a chance to go out there, I've only gone out once, and I decided I'm not going back again. But the employees shocked me. I wouldn't work in those conditions. That's probably the biggest shock is, the animals deserve a good place, but the people donating their time and then the ones that are also working there, I wouldn't be in those conditions because it's rough. It's rough, and so we're hoping to improve two areas, employee-wise and animal-wise.
I would say two things. I know how passionate Darla was for many, many years trying to get this started. I know it's been a need and a desire for a long time. And just the fact that the board showed up tonight in mass and supporters showed up, I think says a lot about how they feel. The only other thing, when we think about any business or any not-for-profit, having to take a loan out to do a building, it sure be nice if we can minimize that interest cost and that payment. If you all could, maybe we set the example, another example of the generosity of this community to try and get more donations so they don't have to take a loan out. That's just my comment.
Does the council have anything more they need to discuss, or are you ready to entertain a motion? Ready to entertain a
I would
motion?
just ask for a consensus, or actually for your approval, and we'll do it depending on what you want to do. I would ask if your consensus is to approve going to the Board of Works Friday to amend the 2018 contract to support an additional $25,000 specifically for the building of the new shelter. I would say that's the first thing I would ask you, if that's what you want to do, or if you want to change any of that.
Two parts, Mike, one for this year and one for next year.
I'm just asking for they're separate processes, so the 2018, we'd have to amend that.
Okay.
I want to know if you have and if the 25,000 sounds reasonable. You know that we've got more than that in the budget, but my suggestion, I would agree with Clerk Treasurer that we don't want to dip completely into all of that. So our suggestion to you all is 25,000 for this year. So I will give you that piece and see what your thoughts are.
So with the board then, do we have consensus to go ahead with that? Can you give me a show of hands so I know?
Okay, so I'd ask for a formal approval of that.
All right.
All in favor?
I'd like to say something first. First of all, having already gone through the budget process and everything, I'm not real comfortable with something like this at what I would say is the last minute. It's easy to make mistakes, and it's easy to let some of the emotion get involved and not come up with a good, equitable outcome. Having said that, I desire a strong relationship with AWL, with Warsaw. I really do. Some of the things that have come out tonight, I've heard it said that we're getting a bargain. You're probably right. And I believe that the city should probably look at paying their fair share when it comes to a lot of this. We said that with the wages. One of the things I wanted to see happen, I think we're pretty close to being there, is that we pay our people a fair wage for a fair day's work, and pay them market value. Having said that, this is very much the same thing. Now we're contracting out for a job. And we need to pay a fair amount. That doesn't take away my uncomfortableness, if that's a word.
Discomfort.
Discomfort, yeah. That does not take away my discomfort when it comes to making a decision at the last minute like this. But having weighed everything, and as some of you know, I came in here tonight saying, I ain't gonna do it. You know, it's not the way I was trained to make decisions, and that's why it makes me very uncomfortable. But after having heard both sides, after hearing some of the things, I think we've got a lot of work to do. I want to see that committee, that nonprofit committee, come up with some good guidelines for us for next year. And, well, for us to go through next year. And do it in a way that those who are coming and requesting money know how to ask. You know, it's sometimes it's real easy to give what I'll say is a lot of fluff and make everybody feel good, but I try not to let my emotions rule my decisions. It doesn't always work out, but I've said enough.
No, Jack, I understand. I think asking them to come in at the last minute, I felt we at least need to have the conversation. We've talked about, we could delay this till next year, we could delay it till 2020. I know that you feel like that this is a situation that is kind of a last minute thing. I would agree with you. I would also agree with your comments. I think they made a compelling case, and I think our needs are tremendous when it comes to animal control. Our responsibility to the public is tremendous. And I feel like that actually Animal Welfare League's becoming a partner to allow us to exercise the responsibility that we have to our citizens. So, but your point.
And in a lot of ways, we haven't known probably what we need to know.
Right.
That's good.
Tonight was good information, but I appreciate your comments. Anyone else?
Tug, you mentioned, was it 300 animals from you?
336,
336?
28 a month.
That's a low number.
Yeah,
And then I
got
heard
feeling
Dan
theirs
say
goes higher.
1,700 were brought in, and that's getting me to about 15 to 20% of what's brought in is very likely from within the city limits of Warsaw. And that would be something that, again, I was, again, thanks Diane for putting up with me, and, you know, working through it, but very helpful when you think about service and then responsibility to pay for that. It's been helpful. I also think that if you would have made this presentation in the summer, fall, I probably would have not sent a text to you. I probably would have been a little more positive in looking this direction, even then without all the numbers. And so back to what the mayor said, they're making a case for it. And again, we have been here before, whether it's CABS or other organizations where it's a unique request. And this one, again, it looks like this is a $2.3 million footprint. That's a big commitment. So I'm leaning toward it, and I'm also leaning toward, you need to figure it out, but I'm leaning toward the 25 now, since it's, and then the 25 the next time, next year. So, but I don't know, what do you know, what the board wants.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we approve, first of all, we'll do this in two parts. So to amend the 2018 contract to include $25,000 additional dollars to Animal Welfare League.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? And again, the process will be this Friday at Board of Works.
Okay.
And that contract will be amended. Further questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right.
All right, now you can make your second motion if you'd like.
No, you do it. You want to put up again? Yeah, you're so nice and patient with me, yeah, publicly and privately, if they only knew. Yeah, you go ahead. Yeah.
All right, then I'll make a motion that we amend the 2019 contract to include an additional $25,000. And do you want that payable immediately, like not spread out over the year?
Well, we'll change the contract and then Lynn can dispose of that as she sees fit.
And we're not amending it.
The
It
2019
it hasn't been passed
No, it's just
yet.
going to be changed to
Because,
reflect the
okay, so
additional.
to change to request, to reflect an additional $25,000 to be earmarked towards the building project.
Second.
Again, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, thank you.
And council, thank you, because I know you put
Appreciate
a lot of
your
work.
input tonight.
I thank you for coming because it made a difference. And I want to thank the council because every one of them really struggled with doing something like this during this weekend. I heard a lot of phone calls and texts back and forth with me, so thank you for
All
coming.
right, thank you very much. All right, you're not obligated to stay either. We've only got one more item, but
It could be long.
Can't be a piece of cake after that one, right?
all right. Item number 2 is a presentation, first reading of ordinance 2018-1004. This is the 2019 elected officials salary ordinance. I'll have Jennifer present that, and then I know we've got a couple members of the wage committee that will chime in as well.
Yes, in front of you, you have 2018-10-4. It's your 2019 salary ordinance for elected officials for the year 2019. And this was,
Hold up, Michael. There you go.
Closer.
Yeah.
what did Tug say? Can I take it out and walk around?
There you go.
Okay, and so these numbers also reflect a 4% increase to the 2018 wages, as with the same thing for general and fire and police.
Questions? All right, so Diane and Jeff, I believe, were involved in that. Any comments?
Yeah. I'll say that this percentage is the same as what we are looking at with the city employees, which is something I've always tried to stay true with for, this will be my 19th or 20th time. Appreciate all of Jennifer's work, the mayor's assistance, and then obviously Diane making this recommendation. The red flag in the spring was the 2.8% cost of living adjustment from the federal government. And then also, I think, I can't speak for the wage committee, but the matrix that we have been putting together for several years now, we have not really lifted that at all. We've been surgical, focusing on certain jobs, classifications, thank you. And this would be something that would lift the entire matrix with the 2.8 cost of living, and then obviously you're hearing 4, which is just over 1%, you could say raise, which is giving the employees 4%. And again, we as a board then are telling every taxpayer in the community, no more, no less. We're staying true to what we believe is best for our employees. So, is that okay to say?
You
all right with it?
are pretty much right on target. We did, with the police department, we were able to actually concentrate on their classifications and their rank structure. Fire department will be next year, but we stayed within that 4% that we were allowed in the budgets. So fire should be the very last one, and then we'll revisit.
I guess the only thing I would have to add is just that there is a small increase in insurance costs, as well as looking at the cost of living raise, which is why we went with the 4%, rather than keeping it lower, because for some of our minimally paid workers, it would have cut into what they were bringing home instead of giving them some little extra.
And it's not a perfect exercise, and I know Jack and others have served on this wage committee, and then again, this board has been voting, but we have department heads that are here, employees, Tug tonight. I just appreciate the department heads the employees, your patience with this process for the past several years. I feel from my seat, talking to you and talking to the taxpayers, this is far better than the old waving the wand and just saying, let's do this, let's do that. And so I appreciate everybody's patience and efforts with this, and I just think it's another step in the right direction for the community. So.
Anything else?
Okay, I'd make a motion then that we pass 2018-10-04 on first reading.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Pass 7-0. We'll take up the second reading the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Okay, I think that's it. Council have any other matters come before?
I'd like
Council.
to invite Mike to share something.
It's that time. We're bringing Susie McIntyre back. And I've got an invitation for each one of you. This is her 5th year. It's free. We just asked that a toy be brought to go to Toys for Tots. One of our sponsors came forward and wants to do a lunch for the kids ahead of time. So we've got Santa and Mrs. Claus coming.
By
We're putting
helicopter.
a gift basket together for the kids. You guys are all invited to that.
Mike, you want to go to the microphone so that you can pass all this information on to our live streamed audience?
So you just want me to say it all again?
Yeah. I couldn't hear you.
So we're bringing Susie McIntyre back. This will be the 5th year. I actually got a letter in the mail from the governor. Dave Wilkins is going to be reading that. And I think you're putting something together. And so it's all covered through sponsors. You can see them all listed. So it's free. Anybody that wants to come can come. We just ask that you bring a new unwrapped toy for Toys for Tots. And one of our sponsors wants to do a little something for kids. We're specifically inviting Beam & Home, Fellowship Missions, CCS, Salvation Army. But it's open to anybody. And we're going to have a light lunch. We're going to have gift bags for the kids. Santa and Mrs. Claus is coming. And the Christmas story. And Susie is actually going to come out and visit with the kids ahead of time. So you guys are all welcome. You guys are all welcome.
All right.
Anybody have any questions about
So
it?
it's December 16th at 2
It is.
o'clock at Lakeview Middle School, right?
The show starts at 4.
Get that on the stream.
The show starts at 4.
All right, Mike, thanks for all your work on that. Good year in a row. All right, as far as council goes, any other matters come before the council? Any visitors, comments, questions? Department heads?
I just wanted to update you a little bit. One of the concerns when we were going through all the rate increase was the meter sizing. I had a meeting with Chris Harrison with Indiana American Water, and you may have seen some of the articles that our news has put out. There is the opportunity, if any of your constituents asked, if you have a 1-inch meter or larger, for Indiana American to come in, they'll evaluate your water usage, and potentially you can put in a smaller meter at no charge. There's no plumbing that needs to be done inside the structure. They'll put reducers on at the meter, and they cover all that expense. So it'll help reduce your monthly sewer bills in. I just wanted to let you know that in case anyone asks, and if you have any questions about it.
So would they be installing new meter sizes?
Yes, they install new meters at no charge.
All right, thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
And along that line, we did get, UMBOT did calculate the savings by going to the SRF loan. They utilized a slightly different interest rate but the total savings, projected savings over 5 years was $4.2 million over the life of the loan. So I know we had mentioned around 5, and we utilized that rate that we had just sold the bond for, which for comparison purposes made sense. But they have a different matrix that they use for what the SRF amount was and what the actual bond rate comparison would be. So it was about $4.2 million. And that was our savings, like taking action as we did. So, what else? All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All right, thank you. Thanks, everybody.
You're gonna be around the building then? I'll comply with those contracts.
I guess we don't have anything to sign tonight.
Yeah.
We don't have anything to sign.
I don't think we
tonight.
do, I was just thinking that myself, but
Because
we
next week we'll have,
we will have the salary.
Nothing to sign.